At today's conference, we are going to discover the issues, updates, and findings on adaptive education, empowering teaching and learning for quality education, in which that is the theme for today's conference. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to invite Professor T.S. Dr. Zaidatun binti Tasir, Dean Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities from University Technology Malaysia, for a keynote address. Please welcome, Prof.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, UC of College Yayasan Pahang, the rectors with us, and also all the members of UCYP, and also the organizing committees of the Second International Conference on Education 2022. Thank you very much for inviting me as keynote speaker for today's sessions. These titles of adaptive learnings has been recalled back my memory when I did my PhD in personalized learning. And before that, I will just like to check with the members that you can see my slide, isn't it?
It's on screen.
Okay, you see the slideshow, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Because I have a 3 screen in front of me, so that's why I have to make sure that you get the correct screen. Okay, the title is about technology empowered innovative pedagogy for promoting adaptive learning. I still remember in 1996 when I did a PhD in personalized learning, I went to see my supervisors at Penn State University at that moment is Professor Jonathan, and when we discussed a lot about personalized learning, and at that moment he introduced me with the words of adaptive learning. So when we explore adaptive learning has been pioneered by a psychologist, Carl Jung, in 2012, which is actually very interesting theory that related to analytics in psychology, which is actually at that moment, 1912, we know that the developments of technology is not like today's we have in 2022, but Carl Jung has already discussed about adaptive learning a lot in 1912, and at that moment it's just a concept of adaptive learning. And I salute UCYP for have a taglines of adaptive education, which is actually the way forward that we should focus in the future. So this is where the ways of education will change by 2028. If you look at in 2024, we know that in 2024, MOOCs has been there in higher eds, where MOOCs actually improve a lot in terms of help us a lot to implement the blended learning. In 2016, where the adaptive computer base has been discussed back through the terms of intelligent tutoring system, which is actually the ITS, intelligent tutoring system, has been there since 1995, but has been discussed back in 2016 and in 2018, where technologies not only need to be introduced at higher ed, but we should also start as early as we can. And that one, technology has become one of the literacy that most of children's and learners need to cover beside literacy in language. And in 2020, we can see the cloud-based educations. Now the physical server has been replaced by the cloud-based server, and also educations, where it's easily for us to have a place to discuss and put everything in the cloud. And in 2024, that we can see the culture has been changed a lot, where the mobile learnings has been become, I think, the important means in today's education. And in 2028, this is where the way forwards, where diverse learning formats, personalized learning, personalized adaptive learning which is actually focusing on the bit size of knowledge, micro credentials, contemporary educations, contemporary academic programs, curriculums, and everything has been come into the higher ed. And we have to face the reality, which is actually the educational technology versus the learning theory, which empowered which. This is very two important elements that we need to discuss nowadays. I still remember when I embarked in an area of educational technology, which is actually, I think, the same area with your rector of UCYP, Datuk, yang berbahagia Datuk Ahmad. Some people in pure psychologists, they thought that technology is just a tool, but believe me or not, and the technology has changed how people learn, and new learning theory has emerged because of the technology. This is where we can discuss in a very interesting point, which empower which. Let us look at a little bit on what technology can offer, what the innovative pedagogy can offer. So everybody knows through technology, we can have a flexible educations, and technology allowed for creativities, attract student learning, and the pedagogy, the innovative pedagogy also must focus on flexibility. It must be agile and adjustables. There we come adaptive learning. It must be student-centered. It must be focused on learning. We need to focus on learning instead of focus on teaching. And the 6 opportunities for digital transformation in higher ed. This is where we are now in 2022. The digital dashboard is coming. This is related to adaptive learning. Also, we are not going to produce a report card anymore. We are producing a digital dashboard for every single learners that we have in our university so that they can monitor their own learning. And I believe higher eds, including a public university, this is what we need to explore in the future. And technology empowered this mechanism to be implemented in higher ed. The Internet of Things, the virtual realities, the predictive analysis, artificial intelligence, and of course the adaptive learning. In the predictive analysis, part of my research related to predictive analysis is that we try to identify the learning behaviors of students that can be replicated by other learners so that technology can assist learning. The reason why we use technology in teaching and learning is to assist people in learning. And we don't want technology will create challenges and problems to learner. Technology should assist learning process, and this is where the predictive analytics, the artificial intelligence, the adaptive learning is coming into the frame. And if we monitor on the evolutions of the learning system over time, from 1996 to 2020, we can see that the socials, mobile learning user-generated content has been part of the timeline, and the learning analytics has been discussed a lot nowadays. I embarked into research in learning analytics in 2012 when we did a research on it and looking into the data that we captured from the learning systems that we have at UTM. The learning engagement is another important factors that we need to focus, and the learning relationship and personal transformation. And today, the individualized learning, the personalized, iterative, bit-sized nugget, and also the adaptive learning is the way forward for the higher eds to survive and to align with the nature of human beings, especially the Alpha and Z generations. And talking about the ICT integration, where are we? Are we still in the emerging steps or stage, or we are actually at the stage of applying or infusing or transforming? Nowadays, we should actually up to the levels or the stage of reinventing. We should reinventing our pedagogy so that it aligns with the developments of technology. And this is where the two big groups of people those working in the backgrounds of technology and those working in the backgrounds of pedagogies and psychology need to be together to see how can these two factors contribute each others, and how can technologies empower the pedagogies to produce what we call it adaptive learning. And the populace of ICT integration model is SAAMRR models, which essentially consists of substitution, augmentations, modification, and redefinition. So we at higher eds nowadays, if we call ourselves as a future-ready educators in 2022, and those who might be not going to be retired within these 5 years, you should actually prepare yourself. We should actually focusing on the stage of redefinitions of our own teaching and learning methods, which is actually our pedagogies, and embark into it and see how technology can adjust a little bit in terms of our pedagogy. Some issues need to be discussed, which is actually we will discuss a lot today on the impacts of the technologies has on learning theory. No doubts, I will share some of my research finding, how technology actually impact on the learning theories, the evaluations of media and learning theory itself. There are so many learning theories that we have nowadays, some of it actually totally new to all of us, and how do they fit each other, the emergence of the new learning theories and the new learning perspective and research on teaching and learning. The popular three school of thoughts of learning theories, I believe most of us knows: behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism are there. I'm not saying that these three learning theory is not relevant in 2022. It's still relevant, but we have to open our minds to open the digital age learning theories, which is actually focusing on connectivism, where learning is a process of connecting nodes or information sources. For example, if I want to learn something, I did not need to register into any academic program in any university. I just can sit in front of my notebook right now, and I just can register few courses in, might be in MIT, another 2 courses from Monash, and then it might be another 3 courses in UCUIP, and 1 courses might be from UTM. If I combine it together, might be I can be graduated and certified with certain credentials that allow me to look into it and so on. So this is where the evolutions of the learning theory also is an important role that we should consider nowadays in this digital age. And this has made learning definition has been changed. Everybody knows before this that learning is actually changes of behavior. That is what the behaviorists keep telling us, that learning is a changes of behavior. Then we will talk, when we go to connectivism, is learning is no longer the changes of behavior. Learning is related to how do you encode and recode information from your mind. It's not brain, mind by connectivism. And then we move to constructivism. The constructivist school of thought psychologists mentions that learning is not just about changes of behavior and how do you store information in your mind, but it's how do you construct your knowledge from interacting with the things that surround you. But in digital age, learning is about social network relation. Learning is where learners will interact with content, expert, and peers, not only with the instructor, but with the content, expert, and peers. Learning is actually interact with societies, environments, technologies, and surrounding. And the crowd is massive and complex. If you enroll into massive open online courses, MOOCs, of course, you don't have your course mate is actually massive and complex, and they are not with the same age that you have. They are different background, they have a different background, and this is where learning is a crowd. The crowd is massive and complex. And learning is where we would like to see the behaviors of who influence whom. So through the social network analysis, it allows us to identify which student influence which student. So in our class, we can actually identify influencer, who is actually influencer in our class, and technology can assist us. And this is where we can actually adjust a little bit on our pedagogies. So to provide flexibility in education, which is actually represent the adaptive learning. Some new learning theories have been emerged along the way: the situated cognitions, the connectivism, the socially shared connection, distributed connection. This is all the theories that looking at the capabilities of brain, the existing theories, and also the online behavior. And it's aligned with the future-ready curriculum frameworks by the Ministry of Higher Education in Malaysia. Everybody in Malaysia is really familiar with this kind of tree, which is actually the 21st century pedagogies, has been listed as a future-ready curriculum framework element in the future-ready curriculum framework. And talking about 21st century pedagogy, the three popular one that I will share in my keynotes, which are the heterogogies, the pedagogies, and cybergogies. And where do we going to use these three innovative 21st century pedagogy into our teaching and learning to produce the adaptive learning process? And of course, my higher education has been developed from 1.0 to 4.0, where in 4.0, learners is actually has a connectors, creators, and constructivists. Learners should be the one who create their own learning materials nowadays. We actually act as facilitators, and how do we trigger them in their learning process? Professor George Siemens in 2021, he actually expose us to the concept of comparing the traditional course and connectivist course. In a traditional course like we have in most of our program, we have the textbook, the syllabus, the videos, that's all the contents. We put it in the formats of videos, lecture notes. We invite the guest speakers. We have the activities, learning activities. We have the demonstrations. That is where the faculty members provide resources in the context of our own academic program curriculum, but not on connectivist course. In connectivist course, the content and interactions actually can come from the learners, can come from the faculty members, can come also from other open resources that we can get it from the internet. And the spaces of learning is not only in the classroom or in WebEx. The spaces of learning can be anywhere. It can be in the work setting, can be in the lab, can be in the field, in the Google group, in the Facebook group, in the any kinds of community that can be the spaces of learning. And this is where, with this kind of opportunity, I call it as opportunity, not challenges. This is where we should actually revise our pedagogy so that we can attract the student and we can try to adjust our teaching and learning process to suit every single students that we have in our class. And talking about contemporary pedagogy, the simple term is that it must actually cover a refresh look at the pedagogy, it belonging to the present time that we have right now, and it actually have a characteristic of the now that we have at the present that time that we have. And some of the principles of the contemporary learnings, we have to change the roles of learners to be a self-directed learners. We have to move the responsibility of learning from us as an instructor to the student, and from dependency to autonomy. That's going to be what we should focus nowadays in our class. And 6 clusters of innovative pedagogy that been empowered by technology is the experiential learnings, computational thinking, blended learning, high flex, hybrid learnings. That's another new terms that come in nowadays. Due to the COVID, we have high flex classroom and so on. Gamifications, multi-critical literacy. These are 6 clusters of innovative pedagogy, and some of the modern pedagogy that we can use in our teaching and learning to provide the adaptive learning process is like incidential learning, the analytics of emotion. If we can actually analyze the emotions of our learners, might be at early in the morning when we actually enter WebEx, if you have your online learning session or you enter your classroom, then you know how to actually attract the attention of different students in your class. This is some parts of the 10 learning strategies for modern pedagogies that been changed because of the technology. Okay, let us talk the two important words, pedagogy and technology, which is actually helping each other. We cannot actually separate pedagogy from technology. And with that, I will focus on the three important innovative pedagogy that emerge totally because of technology, which are the heterogogy, the cybergogy, and also the pedagogy. Heterogogy is actually a self-determined learning. Learners is not only part of the learning communities, learner is actually an agent of their own learning. So how can we actually make our student as agent of their own learning? I give a simple example of pedagogy that I did in my class. In my class, I allow the students to select their own topics of learning. I have 10 topics of learning. Of course, if I follow the sequence of the topics, of course I will teach topic 1 first, topic 2, and so on. But in our class, the first thing that I will do, okay, I will ask the student which topic that we would like to learn first, and how can we integrate certain topic. Might be from topic 1, we integrate with topic 6, integrate with topic 8 together, and this is going to be the first topic that we're going to learn. And I will ask the student, how can we learn so that they can be the agent of their own learning? That is pedagogy, and we can also use it in our assessment. Pedagogy is where co-learning, co-constructing, co-creating the student, between among student and the students, they have to learn that they are peers. They are co-learn, co-construct their own learning, co-creating the content, and co-work, share activities, peer review, peer assessment as part of pedagogy. And the cybergogy, the word of cyber, totally everybody knows that cyber must related to technology. It's where you encourage learners engage in 3 important domains: cognitive, emotional, and social domain. And this is how can we look into these 3 domains together. These 3 popular innovative pedagogy has been empowered by technologies and assist us to implement adaptive learning. When we talk about adaptive learning, totally, of course, we can't actually run from intelligent tutoring system and so on, but we can actually implement adaptive technology, adaptive learning in a setting that the technology is not actually has been used as a key, but we can actually implement adaptive learning through these 3 pedagogies in a process where I call it not only high-end technology, but low-end technology. Okay, this is some of differences. Might be if you want to compare among pedagogy, andragogy, and heterogogy. And heterogogy focus a lot on learners' autonomy. So the learners is actually control their own learning. And if we have in our class 20 students, can we allow each of the students control their own learning? If you ask me, it's a possible ways to do that. I did that in my class, especially when you teach open distance learning courses. And this is actually the enablers of pedagogy. And if you look into it, totally technology is actually act as enablers in pedagogy learning activities. The adaptive learning, the personalized, the social media, the flipped classroom concept, the mobile learning, the mobile device that students have is actually enablers in pedagogy learning activities, the learning analytics and so on. And in terms of pedagogy, this is some of the tools that actually assist pedagogy in teaching and learning. And when we talk about cybergogy, which is actually focusing on the 3 domains, as I did mention, the cognitive, the social, and the emotive. And this is actually related to, if some of you popular with the communities of inquiry models, cybergogy reflecting a lot on communities of inquiry models, where these 3 elements of cybergogy play an important roles in cybergogy. And this is how, if you would like to see the levels of implementations of cognitive domain, which is actually reflecting Bloom, the emotional domain also part of Bloom and part of from the cybergogy, and also the social domain. I actually embarked into a research that developing an immersive blended learning pedagogical frameworks, which is actually comparing the 3 innovative pedagogies, the heterogogies, pedagogy, and cybergogy, and I look into the advantages of the technology, which are the Facebook, blog, and LMS. What are the capability of these 3 technologies that can actually help and tailor or empower these 3 innovative pedagogy in teaching and learning? A very interesting findings that I found out, and the articles about this has been published in the journals. You can just Google it and you can just read it if you want to learn further about it. As I did mention, the communities of inquiry is models that looking at the 3 aspects of present. This is actually when you embark into a research in technologies and pedagogy, the cognitive present is the important present that we need to be looking to teaching and learning. The social present, because we talk a lot, when we talk about technology, is about online social learnings and so on. And the third present is the teaching present. We still need teachers, we still need instructors and lecturers nowadays. That is where the teaching present come in. And if we look into the details about this component, how can technology empower these elements of COI, a community of inquiry, in terms of engagement with participants? We know that there are quite numbers of technology tools that we can use to create interaction among the learners and also interaction between the instructors and all learners. And talking about the setting of the climates, the learning objective, the goals, we can use different formats like text-based, video-based. And when we talk about the engagement in terms of direction, the multiple forms of content, teachers can use video, podcast, narrated slide in their own teaching. And in terms of assessment, there are so many tools that we can use for assessment, like Quizlet, Kaltura, Kahoot. There are so many that you can use. Make sure that you're familiar enough with all the tools. And this will create what we call the interactive opportunities for students to engage with the content. So this is where if we like to create engaged learning experience in online learning, reflecting the community of inquiry, which is actually the core concept is on student interaction. This is where the technology can help it, okay? And tools like Padlets, Yammers, and Edpuzzle is where you can use to engage students in terms of content. And details, another popular one that I think most of you familiar enough is TPAC, Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge, which is actually when you talk about technology, it's not only about technological knowledge, it's also about content knowledge, it's also about pedagogical knowledge, meaning that as a future-ready educators, as an instructor in higher ed, we should have these 3 kinds of knowledge before we can embark into teaching with technologies or using innovative pedagogies for adaptive learning. So the overlapping of these 3 circles, the TPAC here, this is where the things that we should have, and we should have skill of these 3 areas. And this is where, when we divide on the process that we always focus in our teaching and learning, what to teach, learn. For example, let's say I would like to teach a geometry. This is related to content and content knowledge. Content knowledge is about your subject matter expert. What are you expert into it? If let's say you are expert in geometry, you might be expert in other mathematical concept and so on. How are you going to teach it using technology? You might be going to use a GeoGebra in teaching and learning. You might be going to use blog, Facebook, YouTube to assist you in teaching and learning. How are you going to assess it? You might going to assess it through Kahoot, Flipgrid, and Quizlet. And you can actually design certain students will be measured through Kahoot, certain students will be assessed through Flipgrid, certain students will be assessed to Quizlet. If you are doing that, you are promoting adaptive learning in your teaching and learning. And this is where you can see that the first part is related to cognitive and emotional. The second part is related to cognitive and social emotional. And if you're using Kahoot, Flipgrid, and so on, you try to address the cognitive, the emotional, and social, which is actually part of cybergogy. And the categories of modern workplace learning is focusing on which teaching and learning methods that you would like to focus. If you focus on didactics ways of formal learning, then of course you have the classroom setting, the e-learning. And if you're looking on the experiential learning, of course you have the work settings to be focused into it. And if you're working on discovery, you ask the student to search through the web. Problem-based learning is part of how students will discover their learning, their learning process through informal learning and so on. And if you focus on social learning, then the student will interact with others. And some of the tools that you can use some of tools are free, some of them you need to subscribe. This is all the tools that we can use. And this is where we can see that how technology empowered pedagogies to provide the adaptive learning process. And the process of learning is like this, and the student learning that we can see it, student is not only contact us as instructor, but they can just easily get all information through outside the class, anywhere at any time. Okay, this is where we can see that today process, we cannot just use one size fit all for all learners. And our education need to be changed to be tailored with the needs of individual learning. And one-to-one tutoring is actually the process that been there by Bloom before this, where we can see that is a classic ways of learning. And adaptive learning is actually adaptive learning mimics the best model of one-to-one tutoring in a group, is in a big groups of people. We cannot use adaptive learning in our class without the existing of technology. Because if you do that, you have 30 students in your class, you need more time to focus each single individual of your student. But adaptive learning can do that. This is where you can see the benefit of adaptive learning, not only to the learners, but to the teachers and also to the institution. And how can you make your teaching adaptive? 4 factors that you need to focus is on the demographic factors, the performance factors, the knowledge factors, and the misconception. This is where, if you look at how the adaptive learning system works, this is how, okay, because the adaptive learning, it will capture, it must actually do through a system. I believe in higher eds, everybody has your own e-learning system, learning management system. So inside the e-learning system, it captures a comprehensive data about your learners. So if you're going to mining the data, you analyze the data of your LMS at your institution, then you can categorize the learners according to their performance level, according to their preferences, according to their demographic background, according to their little bit on their learning styles or those styles of learning. This is where through the engines of computer algorithm, you can adjust and adapt. You can produce multiple ways of learning environments, which is actually injecting the innovative pedagogy according to the difficulty levels of the learning model that you will produce. And this is where you can produce what we call it adaptive learning. One of simple examples, go through the concept of identifying the levels of performance of your students. And through that, you can categorize into 3 levels. Below 65%, might be 65% to 85%, and above 85%. By identifying the background of student performance, you can actually set which time that you're going to reassign the assignment to the student. Is it going to be the next day for the below 95%? Is it going to be assigned less than 1 week for those actually performance in the range of 65 to 85%? Or those might be above 85%, you will reassign it more than 1 week. So this is where you can just do it in your teaching and learning. Manually, you can do that, but you need lots of work to analyze the student background. But then through the computer programming, through the intelligent tutoring system like this, and this is where the computer can actually help you, the algorithm or the computer can actually assist you to look at or to adjust or to produce the adaptive learning. We say actually at the design loop, this is where the innovative pedagogy come in, and the other modern pedagogy also come in. And this is where we can see how technologies actually empowered the innovative pedagogy to produce the, what we call it, the adaptive learning. So the synergy between the educational psychologists who are actually expert in how people learn, and also with the data scientists, the technologists, they are actually expert in how to integrate the data, how to analyze the data, how to see the common patterns of certain behavior and so on. These two group of people need to be merged and to be combined by those working in educational technologies, because educational technologies are those who actually have a background in how people learn and also have a background in terms of data, learning analytics, data scientists, and so on. And with this, then we can actually produce what we call it technology-empowered innovative pedagogy for promoting adaptive learning. I think that is what I would like to share for today's. I hope it will actually assist a lot and have a lot to give ideas to the members of this conference and the participant of this conference. How can you actually tailor or adjust your pedagogy through technology so that you can promote the adaptive learning? Start it small as you can. You need to start now. Okay, if you are really a computer scientist, of course you can embark to ITS and you can just easily produce auto-generated learning environments for different types of students that you have. But if you are not a computer scientist, what you can do is that you can do it manually, but you need to analyze the student data first before you decide on what kind of learning path or what kinds of pedagogies that you will focus in your own teaching and learning. So thank you very much. I will stop share my screen, and then I welcome if there is any questions from the floor, from the web, from the Zoom, would like to ask related to my sharing session. Thank you very much. I pass back to the UCYP. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. T.S. Dr. Zaidatun, the Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, for the sharing session on technology-empowered innovative pedagogy for promoting adaptive learning. So, Prof, I would say that is very comprehensive, all right? And to be frank, all those things have been, announced, all right? When Industrial Revolution 4.0 being, being mentioned earlier. So we have, in education, we have all these pedagogy, pedagogy, and also cybergogy, all right? And there's no way to say that which one will be the best method. Am I right, Prof?
Yes.
Okay.
It's up to your, I can say it is you have to know your class. You have to know your students. That's why I mentioned that I'm not saying that behaviorism is obsolete. You can't use it anymore. No, you still can use it. It's up to the setting and the students, the background of student that you receive in your class. You need to know what are the background of your students, what are their performance levels, where are they from. Most of Malaysian university are B40. We know where are they from, and you need to analyze and know your student very well.
Exactly.
There is no fixed or rigid methods that works for across all class. Sometimes might be you teach 3 section of classes. It up to the background of the student, and you can adjust a little bit so that it will be adaptive learning and try to fit with what the learners need. And adaptive learning has been implemented in most of the university, and it has been proved that it reduces student attrition rate. Student drop out will be reduced if you actually focusing on adaptive learning.
Okay, well, that's great. Prof, there's one question from the participant. From your experience, what are the normal challenges faced by the students to adapt adaptive learning in classroom?
Okay. One of the challenges that I face is that, students have their own, mindset on what should learning, how does teaching and learning take place. Usually you receive students, okay, let me just give 2 different situations. First environment is that when you have a face-to-face class, when you have a face-to-face teaching and learning session, the student enter the classroom and they sit in front of you and they just wait for you to teach. Okay, that is actually a big challenge when you would like to transform your teaching and learning where they need to be part of the learning process. Okay, because they used to it where the instructors will teach them everything. Return to page 56, read this and do this and so on. So this kind of learning behavior need to be changed. That's why when you embark into this adaptive learning process, which is actually focusing on the strength of each of the student inside your class, you need to inform the student. If not, of course, the student will complain the way that you teach in the class, and they will send to Dr. Ahmad lah, okay, from UCYP lecturers. Okay, Dr. Ahmad, this lecturer is not teach in my class. I paid for this tuition fees, but it looks like it's not teaching. Okay, that's why it must be informed to the student at day 1 in your class, saying that, okay, this is how we going to go for this class. Okay, not say that this is, don't say to the student that this is how I'm going to teach in this class. No, don't do that. Just say that, okay, this is our class. This is what we're going to do in our class. This is your role. Focus was on their role. This is your role. This is my role. So we need to help each other to make this class work. And then you tell the student what do they need to prepare. They need to be ready in your class, in everything. They need to say something in your class. It's about them. It's not about you anymore. Okay, they are the one who's going to receive the degree. You already have your doctoral PhD degree as an instructor. Okay, this is where one of the challenges is that to change the culture, the learning culture in your class. Same goes to if you have an online class, WebEx. Most of the students, they're not going to on their camera, isn't it? We accept it because some of the students, they did not have a good facilities. They don't have a video cameras to on the cameras in WebEx or Zoom. But what we can do is that they have to say something, and you have to make sure that they have to contribute in their own learning. And this is one of the challenges, to change the learning culture, to change the mindset. And this can be done, I believe UCYP with the tagline of adaptive education, that is part of your policy. And this is where every student who enroll into register in UCYP, they know that they are in the adaptive education-based college that they need to be an agent of their own learning. Yeah.
Sure. All right, so thank you so much, Prof, for the sharing. Are there any questions from the participants? You may post your questions in the chat box. All right, so if so happen that you do have questions, all right. Prof, is it okay for us to email or private check the questions to you after this, just in case, if there are more questions?
Yeah, if there are more questions, you just can email me. I put my email address in the chat so that everybody can emails me. We can have a discussion on it, and of course, it's very interesting things to be discussed about the way forwards for higher education, so that we can actually produce more leaders, more what you call it, thinkers, not only followers. Okay, thank you.
All right, so generous of you, Prof. Thank you so much. We're so happy to have you today. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers and participants, I think that's about time for us for this keynote address session. We're going to move on to the next speaker after this. Once again, thank you so much to Prof. T.S. Dr. Zaidatun binti Tasir, Dean Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, University Technology, Malaysia. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
All right.